Blair, Nebraska has not experienced a murder since 1983. Decades later, the town has to relive a crime its people will never forget.
Two teens kidnapped, sexually assaulted, and murdered 21-year-old Mary Jo Hovendick. A judge sentenced them to life in prison. But now the highest court in the land is giving them a second chance. Here's KMTV's Emily Zink.
Pretty good. They got it?
She said so.
Oh, God. I hope.
On January 15th, 1983, 4 days after 21-year-old Mary Jo Hovendick of Blair, Nebraska, was abducted from her job at a local donut shop,
She's on her top.
a dive team found her car submerged in an ice-filled Missouri River.
They located the car, but she was not in it.
21-year-old Mary Jo Hovendick had been murdered.
She was a sweet young lady, just 21, just a sad deal.
Wayne Flora vividly remembers Mary Jo's death.
I was patrolling down Highway 30 going towards the river on Highway 30. It was a winter night, real cold, snow-covered.
Flora was working night shift for the Blair Police Department when he saw 16-year-old Brian Smith and 17-year-old Dale Nolan walking along Highway 30 around midnight.
And they said they had been over to Missouri Valley to a party and had gotten a ride back to the Blair Bridge and were walking home from there.
Without hesitation, Flora gave the teens a lift into town.
Do you think they were walking back from dumping her car?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. There was no party.
Authorities believe these two youths robbed, sexually assaulted, abducted, and murdered Ms. Hovendick.
Smith and Nolan told prosecutors they planned to rob Donuts, etc. after it had closed for the evening, but panicked when they found out Hovendick was still in the shop.
Went to the river and put her in the back seat, had her hands tied with her apron behind her.
Hovendick was still alive when the teens pushed her car into the Iowa side of the Missouri River.
17-year-old Dale Nolan pleaded guilty to the murder and was sentenced to spend the rest of his life in prison. The other youth, 17-year-old Brian Smith, pleaded guilty to burglary and kidnapping.
Blair residents tell me no matter how many shops have occupied this storefront since, they'll always remember it as the donut shop where Mary Jo Hovendick worked.
You always think about it. Yeah, it's one thing that'll be with you forever.
While Blair residents will never forget always pleasant and petite Mary Jo Hovendick,
Well, she was a pretty little girl.
what they want to forget is her brutal murder.
Just to dump her like that. That was kind of scary.
Unfortunately, more than 30 years later, the town of Blair has to relive the case. Dale Nolan, now 50 years old, and Brian Smith, now 49, are getting resentenced.
When you're sentenced, you got to live with it. If you're guilty, you should have to live with it.
A few months ago, a judge ruled that Dale Nolan must be resentenced based on a 2012 Supreme Court ruling that mandatory life without parole sentences for juveniles convicted of murder were unconstitutional. Brian Smith's life sentence for kidnapping and burglary was recently vacated due to a separate but similar Supreme Court ruling. In theory, both men could walk free with time served, which baffles Blair residents.
They were old enough to know better than what they were doing.
Flora says he never thought he'd encounter these two again.
First thing Mr. Nolan said to me was he wanted to talk to me before he left.
Flora is retired from the force but works part-time at the Washington County Courthouse. 2 months ago, he talked to Dale Nolan for the first time since he gave the teens a ride in his patrol car back in 1983.
He said he just wanted to apologize for lying to me that night. Dale seemed to be really regretful of how things, transpired, and I'm sure he is,
Flora says, unfortunately, the past cannot be changed, and the legal system will now decide the future.
3 lives were ruined, basically, She lost her life, and they've spent these past years incarcerated.
Dale Nolan will be resentenced in January of 2016, and Brian Smith will be resentenced the following month. As for Mary Jo Hovendick's family, they tell me they do not like to talk about her death, so it's even harder to have to hear about it more than 30 years later. In the News Center, Emily Zink, KMTV Action 3 News.